Yeah. The Nikudot.
Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
How are
We'll
you?
keep working on those. We'll do it. That's a Shushan. We'll get back to it.
Yeah, so we're doing hey. So it says in hey like this. Lo yitpalel b'makom parutz. He shouldn't play in a place which is open, kemo b'sadeh, like a field. De'amar Rava, because Rava says, chatzif alai man dematzle bebigta. So it says, right, the person who prays in a place like that, says Rava, he's like chatzuf, whatever, arrogant, whatever. So what's the arrogance there? So it says Bet Yosef, Gam zeh sham besop perek en omdim. It's also over there in the Gemara, says Bet Yosef, Piresh Rashi explains, Satam, kishehu b'makom tzniut, chala alab emat melech. Oh, so he says, when you're in a place which is tzanua, which is, discreet. So there, he says he gets fear from God. And his heart is broken more. So this rabbi says, since he's in an open place, the doesn't subjugate his heart in front of his creator, to hide in a place which is hidden, even though so he says he doesn't hide himself, even though he's not hidden from his eyes. So he's considered to be arrogant. So let's try to understand, what does that mean? Okay, we'll go on. We'll come back to that. We'll see what it says here. Tosfot katvu says Tosfot. If you're going to tell me Hakati, but isn't it written? Oh, this was my question, right? It says in Genesis there, right, that Yitzchak went out to pray in the field. So then what's the problem? Oh, so it says there, it says he's talking about the Temple Mount, right? So that's a special place. And Nami alternatively says, so he says, because here, also another answer is that here, when we're talking about open places, it's talking about a place where people are accustomed to la'avor, they pass by there. So in other words, the problem is that when you're praying in a place which is open, there's traffic going by there, pedestrian traffic, and it's not discreet. This is the problem. Can you imagine like a person got down, into the street, right? And just starts praying there, like, what are you praying in the street for? People are passing by there. What are you making into a public spectacle? Okay, so the tema de tirutz sheni. So he says, according to the second answer that we have here, it seems like the reason is because we don't want people passing by and interrupting his prayers, like walking in front of him when he's praying. But he says that's not really a reason to call him arrogant, that's not arrogant per se. Okay, interesting. Let's see Shulchan Aruch, how he sums up this whole thing. So says Shulchan Aruch, Lo yitpalel adam b'makom parutz. You shouldn't pray in a place which is open, kemo basadeh, like the field. So, right. So basically, right, what he's saying is that when you're in a hidden place, when you're in a place which is walled in, fenced in, or whatever, right? Private, you're in a private area, you become more humble like that. As opposed to a person who prays in the field. So, yeah, I guess the idea is like this, that when you pray in the open field, it's like a person, let's say, right, there are some people like this who are wealthy, so they have like a summer home, they go for the summer, so they go into the country, right? They go to the country, and it's nice and cool there, on the field, so it's a nice place to spend the summer. Like here, we go upstate to New York, upstate the Catskills, whatever. Everybody's got their own favorite place to go. So, in a place like that, you just go out into the field and you pray. Problem is, that the nature that you see makes you feel actually very exhilarated, So you become a little bit arrogant there. Like you feel like you're on top of the world because you got all this beautiful nature around you. So therefore, he says, right, that it should be in a place which is more concealed, and this humbles a person. It's interesting psychologically, This is what he's trying to tell.
Is it that, or is it that if he's out, like, I don't know, out in a open space, that he's being haughty, or like, where people can see him, like, here, I'm out here praying. Is that more?
Yeah, so that in the Bet Yosef, he kind of like rejected that theory.
Okay.
So it seems like this is the main reason, because of this issue. But yeah, it's also like, I guess you could say that when a person prays in a place where people are passing by, as we said, what happens is that he turns into some kind of a public event.
So, but
which is like a sort of arrogant,
Is it? But they're saying it would be the same thing if, I don't know, say it was early in the morning and you were on an open beach that nobody's there, you're by yourself, you're just kind of communing with nature. That's still not good.
Yeah. So according to the second reason, that would be fine. But according to this reason that he gives here in the Shulchan Aruch, it seems like that wouldn't be okay.
Okay. Because
he's telling you that, in other words, what happens is that the open area, the nature gives you, a feeling of pride and arrogance, and that's how some people are, they like to go to nature to get that feeling, of being on top of the world, kind of, they like that feeling. So that's not the feeling that a person should have when he's praying. That's what he's saying. Because you feel like you have everything, you're all set, you got it made in the shade. You're on top of the world. You're standing in, nature, the beautiful nature, and you feel like you got everything you need. So then why do you need to pray for it? What are you lacking? You got everything. So this is the psychology behind it. Okay, it's interesting. It's an interesting idea. Anyway, let's go to the next one. So let's see Bet Yosef here. So it says Bet Yosef brings a tour, right? Velo b'churba. Also, another thing he says that you shouldn't pray in ruins, right? What does that mean? In a place where, the buildings were like destroyed, knocked down, Like, you have many of those places now in Ukraine, right? Everything's destroyed over there. So, you go to a place like that where the building is like half destroyed and you pray there, like that's not a good place to pray. That's the idea. So he says in the Bet Yosef, Pashut beresh brachot, right? So it says, it comes out in the brachot beginning, Gimel Amud Aleph, to mipnei shelosha dvarim en nachnis nechurba. So it says over there, Gemara, famous Gemara, right? For 3 reasons, we don't go into the ruins, right? Litpalel mipnei chashad. We don't go to pray there. Why? Because of chashad. So what's chashad? Chashad means suspicion. So what does that mean? They're going to suspect him that he's doing some shady activity over there. Mipnei mapolet, mipnei mazikin, right? And also he says, the second reason is because, it may collapse, right? The whole thing. And the person can get into danger like that. So you don't want to be going into a dilapidated building, and praying there. It's about to collapse any second, right? That could be dangerous. Also, it gives a third reason because of the mazikin, right? What's mazikin? These are the demons, They come and they like to hang out in places like that where there's ruins there. So because of that, when you go into a place of ruins, there's always mazikin over there. So they can harm you, they have power to harm you. So you got to be careful. Yeah. Okay, that's the idea.
So in the Ukraine, with so many things being, destroyed over there, if your choice is between being in a space that's like dilapidated versus an open area, like an open field, which would you choose?
Right. So obviously, the open field is better because this place is even dangerous to your life. You know what I mean? The person could kill himself like that.
Because I don't know that too many people would choose to go to a place that's falling apart. I mean, that's I think I'm going to go to a place that's falling apart. It's not by choice; it's by necessity.
Yeah, I mean, so the truth is, probably the reason why people like to pray in places like that is because it's very quiet. It's like nobody's there. It's like quiet, peaceful, whatever. But tells you the Gemara that even though you may think it's quiet and peaceful there, but you're going into a booby trap. Watch out. You know what I mean? Don't stand in places like that. So that's the that's the whole thing there. Okay, so let's see the Shulchan Aruch here. Okay, says Shulchan Aruch, velo b'churba, right? You shouldn't go into ruins. So it says, what's the reason why? As we said, there's 3 reasons, right? Mipnei chashad, because of suspicion. So what does that mean? In the old days, right? This was pretty common, I guess. Even maybe today, when a person wants to do some hanky-panky with some girl, you know what I mean? He wants to go into a place where it's hidden there. So he goes into the ruins, and thinks he can have a good time over there. I mean, so it tells you, right? If you go into a place like that, they're going to suspect you that you're going to, you're doing hanky-panky there. That's reason number 1. Reason number 2 is because it may collapse, and the person could die from that. Mazikin, right? Mazikin is the demons, right? So you got all these 3 things. So therefore, right, not only a person shouldn't pray in a place like that, he shouldn't even enter there, at all, right? Like we call that today, it's like a hard hat area, it's like when they're building a building, can't go in there, no restricted access, right? Only employees go in there because it's dangerous. Something could fall on your head. I remember when I was a kid, my father, by profession, was an architect. So he was, in Georgia, when we were living in Georgia, I was a kid. he went to a building site, that he was managing, whatever, he was the architect. He went to the building site to inspect, the thing. So guess what happens, he wasn't wearing a helmet, because this wasn't America, this is Georgia, they're not so careful about these things, it's a Russian kind of mentality. So what happened? A big brick, fell out of the building and fell on his head, and he got a big boo-boo on his head, big injury. So I remember he came home and he had like a big, like a big cast on his skull. They wrapped his head up because he had a big injury there. So right, that's what it is. When you're going into ruins, this is what you're looking for. Hashem Yerachem. Hashem should save us, right? Something falling on your head like that. You gotta watch out. Okay. He was all wrapped up. I remember my father, as a kid. He looked like a mummy, It's like, I was like, what is this? My father, my God. I couldn't. So my mother tells me, oh yeah, something fell on his head. Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So that's the story there. There's also a story over there about this in the Gemara, right? I'll tell you, it's a funny story, exactly where it talks about this issue over there in the Gemara. There's a story there that there was a certain rabbi, who needed to go into the ruins for some reason. He had something there or whatever, he had to take it out. But he was afraid to go in, because of all these reasons that we mentioned. He was afraid to enter there. So what does he do? This rabbi is a wise guy, a wise guy. So what does he do, right? He says, this rabbi, Rav Abba Barahava, that was his name. Rav Ada Bar Ahava. So he says, this rabbi is a big tzaddik, He says, if I go in with him, nothing will fall, Hashem will protect him. So what does he do, right? Tells this rabbi, he says, Rabbi, can you take a walk with me, for a few minutes? I need to walk with you for a little while. I got some talk. I got to talk to you. So what does he do? He walks him into the ruins, and then he gets his stuff out of there. You know what I mean? So then this rabbi, in the end, he understood what happened. They took him in there because of protection, So he told him, no, he says, why did you do that to me? He says, you could have killed me. Why did you take me into the ruins like that? So what's the moral lesson over there? Don't use rabbis as shields, right? Don't do it. Okay, be careful. They say, by the way, the Chazal, that when a person, puts himself into danger, you're not allowed to put yourself into danger. You know what I mean? This is forbidden because you may die. You may get hurt. So they say, right, if a person puts himself into danger and they save him, he doesn't get harmed, they reduce his merits, right? They take away his merits because he endangered himself. So they say, you're a wise guy, huh? You endanger yourself and you're relying on your merits, so we're going to reduce your merits because you're playing games. No good to do that. So you see from there, right?
Rabbi, it reminds me when that tornado crossed my path when I was going to work.
Oh my God! How close did it get to you?
It was in front of my car.
Oh Lord! Oh God!
Yeah, it was awesome. But I didn't do it on purpose. It passed me by.
Oh wow!
So yes.
Wow! Incredible. How long ago was that?
A few months ago.
A few months ago. Okay. All right. That's like a miracle almost. Okay, let's go to the next one. So we're going to, Vav. I'm sorry, Vav. So we're going to start Vav. It says there, ולא אחרי בית כנסת דאמר. So also another thing is, he says, you shouldn't pray behind the synagogue. Another thing, right? So he brings this Gemara and says, Dama Rabbi Chelbo, it says, this rabbi says, Hamitpalel achore bet knesset nikra rasha. Oh, so it says, you pray behind the synagogue, you're called a rasha. And then I'm going to go to the tour and read more. There's a little bit more there.
Kavod Harav,
Yes,
I'm sorry, why is he called a Rasha?
we'll find out right now.
Oh, thank you.
Give me, give me a second. Bezat Hashem, we'll find out. So now he says like this, right? So here, so the tour continues. That's only when he doesn't turn his face towards the synagogue. But if he turns his face towards the synagogue, then it's okay. Why? Because we're praying towards the east, and when he's praying behind the shul b'ma'arav, he's in the west. And he turns his face to the shul. So then he's praying in the same direction as the people in the shul. But if he doesn't turn around to the shul, oh, so now it tells you, right? What's the problem? So he says, you know what the problem is? When you're praying behind the shul, and you're not facing the shul, it's like looks like you're praying to another god, because everybody's praying in one direction and you're praying in a different direction. So like what? You have another god there somewhere on the other side? Who are you praying to over there, right? That's the problem. That's why it's called a Rasha. We'll see a little bit more about that. So it says not only that, but even to pass by the shul, behind the shul, when the people are praying there, also forbidden. Why is that? Looks like he's a denier. Why is that? Because they're praying, he doesn't want to go in there, doesn't want to go in and pray with them. So it looks like he's going off the rails somewhere. That's only if he's free. But if he's carrying a load, in other words, he's working, he's doing some labor there. So then it's recognizable. The reason why he's refraining from that is because he's got a load on himself. So it says, even if he's free, if he's wearing tefillin, he doesn't look like he's a denier, because he's wearing tefillin after all. And even if he's free, tefillin, and without tefillin, if there's another shul in that city, or that shul has a different entrance also, and lachush, we're not concerned about that. So because we're not going to be concerned that he's a denier, maybe he's going to the other shul, right? He's got another shul to go to. Right? The Shema Yikanes to Petach Acheret, because maybe he's going to go into a different doorway. Or a different shul. That's it. Okay, so we'll stop there. Go to Bet Yosef. It's like here in this neighborhood, where I live, we got like 30 shuls over here, just in the area. So nobody's going to suspect you that, you're not going to the shul. You're going to think, oh, he's going to the other one. Yeah, down the block, he's got another shul there.
Each shul has
okay.
different minyans, right?
I'm sorry?
Each shul has different minyan times, right?
It's true, but that's not the issue so much in the minyan. In other words, he's going to a different shul, so he's got a different option.
But what if you couldn't assume that he was just he went to earlier? He went to Met and maybe he prayed nets?
Right, but the thing is, if there's no other shul, where do you pray nets? That's the thing, right?
That the one shul can't have more than one time for prayer?
Yeah, sometimes they do, but in general, by the way, most shuls, your average run-in-the-mill, garden variety synagogue has only one prayer, one time for prayer, one shachrit, one mincha, one arvit, and that's all they got. Some places have more, but it's not really the most common thing. You know what I mean? That's why the sages didn't consider that so much. Okay, anyway, so says Bet Yosef regarding that. It's also the first pick of Brachot. Katav Rabbeinu Yonah. Says Rabbeinu Yonah. Piresh Rashi. Rashi explains. So he says the doors of the shuls were open. In other words, all the doors were open. Bekotel Marabi in the west side, and they're all facing the east. Shomed Bekotel Mizrach, which is where the direction of the prayers are. So he says the back of the shul is called the place where the doors are open there. So what does that mean? You're on the west side of the shul. That's called being behind the shul. So it says when he's praying behind the shul, Nikra Rasha. So there he's called Rasha. Why is that? There's three reasons, he says. First of all, everybody's inside, and this guy's praying outside. Like, why are you praying outside, What, there's no room inside the shul there? Why don't you go inside and pray inside? By the way, some people are very careless about these things, Like, you see, some of them, like, they just, like, pray outside, in the hallway. But what's with you, Like, you came all the way to shul, and you're praying in the hallway? Go inside the shul. You can't take a few more steps and go inside? I mean, what's with you? What kind of thing is that? Like, go inside there. That's one thing, he says. Also, he says there's another problem, which is that the people in the shul are playing towards the east. He's praying towards the west, right? He's praying in the wrong direction, right? Like I tell people over here, there are some shuls over here, by the way. We have a problem over here in this neighborhood with some shuls that the Hechal, the Aron Kodesh, was built in the wrong direction, So it's like towards the west instead of being in the east. So I tell people, instead of praying to Jerusalem, you're praying to Los Angeles. I hope you think Los Angeles is a very holy city, but because otherwise I don't know what you're doing. I tell them, why pray to Los Angeles? The holy city is Jerusalem. What's going on with you? I mean, what can you do, right? They always have some excuses. Every place has an excuse why they do it that way. Whatever it is. But the truth is, one rabbi tells me, he says, I can't afford to move it, he says, to the other side. I have no budget for that. So I was like, come on, give me a break. You could do something. I was thinking in my head, come on, don't be, you could move it if you really wanted. These people are so, just don't think about these things. Another place tells me, he says, yeah, we rent this place, and he told me the owner of the property doesn't allow us to move it. So I was like, oh, give me a break. Come on. You could do something with that. But the truth is, honestly, if the Hechal, the Aron Kodesh, is in the west, instead of being in the east, you should turn around, and pray to the other side. Even though you're turning your back to the Sefer Torah, where the Sefer Torah is, so what? It's enclosed. You know what I mean? So it's more important to pray towards Jerusalem. I mean, that's the most important thing there. So you can't do that. You can't pray to the west. Praying towards Los Angeles, or praying towards Manhattan, You praying to Manhattan? What is that? Manhattan is the holy city? Where are you going? I don't understand these people.
What about
So-
when the Georgian shul, they've got the seats that face each other toward the front, or they face the bima? Do the people who pray up there, do they turn?
Well, they should. I mean, they should be. The truth is, in the Georgian shul, the direction of the hechal is not exactly in the right direction. It's like 45 degrees off, so it's not so far. You know what I mean? So that's why I turn a little bit to the west. To the left, which is the right. That's what I do. I turn a little bit to the left.
Do they have mizrach to show people where to go, where to turn?
No, they don't have anything. Just
Oh, which side's east?
I'm using my compass, as I said. My Google compass.
Okay.
So that's the story. A lot of people don't care about these things. They're not so particular. But the truth is that when it's only 45 degrees off, you can get away with it. It's not so bad. But when it's like totally like it's a 180, you know what I mean? Like or 150 or 180, that's already like totally off. You're praying like totally in the wrong direction altogether. Going to Los Angeles, as we said, right? Come on, So that's the whole thing there. But anyway, right, getting back to what we said. So also the second problem, as we said, is that he's praying in the wrong direction. Number one, he's praying towards the west. And then, right, by the way, the Zohar Kadosh says something really powerful about that, He says that the east of the side is the side of the Shekhinah, the divine presence, right? And the west is the side of the Satan, of the Sitra Achra. So when you pray west, you're praying to the Satan, whatever, the direction of the Satan, according to the Zohar. Not such a good idea. Which, by the way, Los Angeles is the same thing, right? Satan, Los Angeles, it's pretty much the same thing. So that's pretty much where you're going there.
Nice.
Okay. So, okay, good. So, as we said, right, that's reason number 2. And then it gives you another reason. The old Shachorav. Another thing is that his back is facing towards the shul, which is not respectful. So he's got, all kinds of issues going on there. משתתף עם הציבור, אבל והוא הדין כשעומד בית כנסת אין להתפלל מערב. Another thing he says that, as we just said, right, that if you're in the shul, you shouldn't pray towards the west. אלא שאינו נקרא רשע. But here he's not called רשע, כיוון שעומד בבית כנסת, because at least he's standing in the shul. משתתף עם הציבור, and he's actually, at least he's combining with the minyan, right? Inside the building there, inside the room. But if he was standing on the outside, the tzad kotel mizrachi, facing towards the east, towards the eastern wall, even though his back is now towards the wall, kotel mizrachi, the eastern wall, the shul, but at least he's praying towards the east, just like the people are praying inside the shul. And only Rasha, he's not called Rashad in a case like that. So it says if he's behind the shul and he's turning his face towards the shul, at least he's facing towards the east, just like the people, even though standing outside. So we're not so, adamant about that. We could tolerate that. Okay, so then he goes on. Furthermore, right? The Katab od Rabbeinu Yonah says Rabbeinu Yonah. Furthermore, right? Sheri mifaresh. The Ri explains be'efek, just the opposite of that. So he says when it says behind the shul, it means you're behind the eastern wall. Shen sham ptachim. The problem is that there's no openings there. So when he's standing behind that wall, and his back is towards the wall, Even though he's facing the east, and therefore he's praying in the direction of all the other people as well in the community, in the shul. Nikra Rasha is called Rasha. Why? Because of two things, he says. Because all the people are in communities inside, and he's outside. And also because his back is facing right the synagogue. And when he turns around towards the shul, if he does that, since his face is facing towards the eastern wall, even though standing outside, but the problem is he's praying towards the west. Even though the people are all playing towards the east, he says that's not so bad. Why? Because they're all facing the eastern wall. Well, that's the echal is over there. His face is also towards that wall. He brought, he says, a source for this in Tanya from what we should learn in Braita. Brachot Lamed Amud Aleph. Haya omed achorei kaporet. He was standing behind the the curtain of the Aron Kodesh. Ireh atzmo keilu omed lifnei kaporet. He should see himself as he's standing in front of the right. In other words, he should imagine as if he's standing in front of it. What does that mean? He should turn his face towards the western wall. Sheshama kaporet. That's where the curtain is over there. I think we're talking about the temple over here. Right? And he should imagine keilu haya omed bifnim in Israel. Right? That he was standing inside with the Jews. And standing in front of the curtain, Atzmo by itself. From Tosfot he says, they hold that Rashi, that he explains that when he says behind the shul, it means behind the wall, that there's no doors in there, there's no entrance there. But Dachut Varav and Tosfot pushed out his words, right? He didn't agree with that. Gershul Ham says they explained that behind the shul, what does it mean? That we're talking about the wall where the entrances are there. Like says Rabbi the dat Rashi, according to Rashi, so he says the Torah is explaining like this explanation. That Tosfot agreed with that. And also Rabbeinu Yonah wrote this in the name of Rashi. Katab Oda Rabbeinu Yonah says furthermore, Rabbeinu Yonah, it says according to everybody, if he's standing outside, right, and praying towards the north, right, he wants to pray to Iceland, right? He thinks that's Jerusalem. Or Letzad Darom, or the south, right? He's going to Rio de Janeiro, right? The Achorav lebet Knesset, and his back is towards the shul. Nikra Gam Ken Rasha. It's called Rasha, right? He's doing all the wrong things, right? He's got all the problems he's got there. Because everybody's inside. He's outside. Also, his back is turned to the shul. But he says if his face is towards the shul, everybody agrees he's not called Rasha. Even though he's standing outside. Even though his face is towards the shul. And even though he's praying towards the east, like the other rest of the community, and lachush, we're not concerned. I'm sorry, I didn't say it right. Since he's not praying towards the east, like the rest of the community, right? We're not concerned. Why? Because he's not praying towards the west. The opposite of where the people are praying. Says Dagot by Maniot. Rashi, right? So it says, you see from here that the explanation of Ri is just the opposite of Rashi. Perush Rashi, Ifcha Perush Ri. And Rashi is the opposite of the Ri. So he says, therefore, you should be stringent like both of them. In other words, don't do it the way Rashi describes, and don't do it also the way the Reed describes. Either way, you're going to be a bad boy. If so, so he says, therefore, if a person is standing outside the shul, right, the mizrach, towards the east, or to the west, he shouldn't face towards the east or to the west. So what should he do? Because otherwise he's transgressing one of these opinions that we mentioned. So what should he do? He should face towards the north or south. That's what he says, right? Samak, that's what it says in Samak. And some explain when it says behind the shul, it means outside the shul. Like it says in the verse, Shir Hashim, according to this, it says you're not even allowed to pray on the side of the shul. It doesn't matter if it's the back or the front or the side. So he says, explaining like the opinion that we mentioned. It's not found in the poskim. We're not concerned about that, it says. Says I wrote close by, name Rabbi Yonah. The opposite of what we just said in the name of this this opinion. So he says we go like Rabbi Yonah. He says you have to erase all this. He says it was put in by mistake. All the last sentence we just read. It says in Bedek Habayit. That's what it says in Orchot Chaim. Name Rabbeinu Hai. If his face was facing towards the shul, and going towards Eretz Israel, he can pray there. If he wants. But if he's turning his back towards the Eretz Israel, also from the shul, but let's say he turned towards the shul, then mukhzarot Eretz Israel, but they're away from Eretz Israel, and no, you shouldn't pray like that, it says. So you learn from here, so he says, you see from there, you shouldn't pray in the courtyard of the synagogue, which is in the east side, only towards the north, or more to the south. If you pray towards the east, the courtyard, behind him, the Bet Knesset, behind the shul. If it's towards the shul, then his back should be towards Eretz Israel. That's the end of it. When Rambam was asked about this, right, in Perador, these are the responses of the Rambam. Midrash Haomed, that's Tadeh, regarding the Midrash, if a person is standing on the Tadeh Knesset, he's standing on the side of the shul, he's allowed to pray like that, and his back, the Bet Knesset, his back is towards the shul. But he's facing towards the direction that everybody's facing when they're praying. The Shib, so Rambam answers like this: all the courtyards which are surrounding the shul, like today we call that the parking lot, right? You go to the parking lot of the shul, right? So the wall is between them and the shul. You're allowed to pray in those courtyards, right? He says, which is like the parking lot. Whether it's a community or an individual, whether they're facing towards the wall of the shul, or whether he's behind his back. So he says nobody ever argued about this. Says we never heard any rabbi who said that there's any prohibition regarding that. So he says why? Because this teaching of Rav Huna that he taught, it's only talking about in a synagogue. We're talking about a shul which is in like a town square. and it's open in every direction. So therefore, if you're standing behind the shul, this particular shul, your back is towards the shul, you're like disgracing the synagogue. You're disrespecting it. And it's like what it says regarding Yechezkel, right? That their backs were towards the synagogue. Because why? Because the shul is standing in the middle of the town square, like a tower. So he says the whole synagogue is like a temple. But it says inside his house, and he's praying there. Can I get Eretz Yisrael? He's praying towards Eretz Yisrael. Karawi, like the proper thing to do. And his back is towards the wall of his house, which is also the wall of the shul. And he says that's not disgracing. So that doesn't look like he's turning his back towards the Aron Kodesh. So it's because it's not recognizable like that. He says, what's the source for this? Story that was brought down Brachot. That this certain person that was praying there, right? And a certain merchant passed by there. This whole story brought down there. This is why he's standing in his house like that. He was on the road, he says. In the town square. Says therefore, when that merchant passed by, the Arab, on the way, and he was, turning his face away from Eretz Israel, and then his back was also towards the shul. He says this is very obvious and known to everybody, in every place. That the courtyards which are around the shul, and the people play there, whatever direction it is towards the shul, towards Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so we see here like several opinions here, 4 or 5 opinions, right, going on here. So we have to see the Shulchan Aruch to see how he paskins here. Really not so simple with all these opinions going on. But it seems like he's favoring the opinion of the Rambam since he brought it last. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so says the Shulchan Aruch, as we said, right, you shouldn't pray behind the synagogue. Unless you turn your face towards the synagogue. So, right, what we said until now is that the only way you could pray behind the shul is if you're facing the shul. That's one thing. Then he goes on, so now the question is like this, right? What is called behind the shul? Which side is that, right? Behind. And which side is called in front? So he tells you, right, what's called behind? It's the direction that the door is open, right? The entrance is open there, which is the opposite of the way that they pray towards, the direction that they pray. So according to that, right, we're talking about you're standing on the west side of the shul. So the proper thing to do is, if you're standing on the west side of the shul, you should pray towards the east, towards the wall of the shul. And that will be okay, according to this first opinion. So again, right, you're standing on the west side of the shul, and you're praying towards the east, like everybody else. Then he goes on. Some explain differently, right? As we said, there's different opinions here. The opposite. So he says, therefore, proper thing to do is to be stringent, like both of them. So what does that mean? The proper thing to do is don't pray whether you're on the east side of the shul or the west side of the shul. You shouldn't pray, with your back towards the shul. וגם כשמתפלל בשאר צדדים, this is also if you're praying towards on the other sides, right? Let's say you're on the east side of the shul, the west side, חוץ לבית כנסת, outside the shul, יש להחמיר, so it's proper to be מחמיר, שיחזיר פניו לבית כנסת. So you should try to face the shul, right? That's the thing to do. So according to what he's saying so far, right, the proper thing to do is whichever side you may be, outside the shul, you should always try to face towards the shul. That's the proper thing to do. So then he goes on. That's only when it's recognizable that he's like, turning away from the shul. But if he's praying in a house, which is like next to the shul, he lives right next to the shul. Panav can get Eretz Yisrael, and he's facing towards Eretz Yisrael, right? Probably like the proper thing to do. And his back is going towards his house. It's also the wall of the shul. Mutar, you're allowed to do that. Because here it's not recognizable that he's turning his back towards the shul. Why is that, by the way, that's not recognizable? Because he's in his own house. Nobody's watching him there. So, it's not like he's doing it in public. So therefore, he's allowed to do it like that. If you have any questions, let me know. It's a little bit tricky, this halakha, but... Okay. Very good. Okay, so let's go to, we got some more time, another 5 minutes or so. So we can go to the next one, which is Het. Yeah. Okay, let's see what Yosef. So it says in Het, brings the tour over here. We already read this in the tour. If he, all right, we said that if he's passing behind the shul, he's not praying there, he's just like walking by. This is also not allowed, right? As we said. So it says Beit Yosef, Perek Kama de Brachot. It's in the first Perek of Brachot, Chet Amud Bet, with Perek Haroeh, and also this Perek, Samech Aleph Amud Aleph, Katav Rabbeinu Yerucham. Says Rabbeinu Yerucham regarding this. Ukamoken, it says also, right, similarly, Davka She'eno Holech Rachuv. It's only if he's not riding. But Tamo Mishum, what does that mean, riding? He's riding on an animal, right? Mishum de B'ksat Nusche Ika B'Perek Haroeh, because some of these texts have this Gemara, V'lo Amru Ela Delo Rachiv Chamra. It's only talking about when he's not riding on a donkey. But if he's riding on a donkey, we don't care. He's riding on an animal. Why is that? Because when he's riding on the animal, it seems like he's too busy guarding his animal, and that's why he can't go into the shul and pray. It doesn't look so bad. So it doesn't look like he's a denier in a case like that. Says Rabbeinu Yonah, that regarding, he says, everybody agrees that this halacha, when it says going behind the shul, we're talking about the place of where you enter, the entrance. So why is that? Since you're passing by the entrance of the shul, you don't go in there. So it seems like, you're removing the yoke of prayer upon yourself, from upon your shoulders. So he says, because if we're talking about that he's passing on the side where there's no doorway there, there's no entrance, we're not really concerned about that. It makes sense, by the way, what he says. Why is that? Because if you're passing by the side where there's no entrance there, so they're not going to say, oh, he's Rasha, he doesn't want to go in to the. Give me 1 second. Hello? כן, יש לי חבילה למטה, את יכולה לאסוף את זה? יש לי חבילה למטה, את יכולה לאסוף את זה? תודה רבה, השם ישמור. Okay, sorry about that. So we're going to do Shulchan Aruch and we're done. Okay. So it says the Shulchan Aruch, אסור לעבור חוץ לבית כנסת. As we said, you're not allowed to pass by the shul, to walk behind the shul, right? בצד שהפתח פתוח. Where is that? On the side where the entrance is there, right? What are we talking about? We're talking about the time where they're praying there, right? Because they're going to say, oh, they're praying and he doesn't want to go inside and pray. Rasha, he doesn't want to pray in the shul. Okay. As we said, right, it looks like a denier. So, right, says the Shulchan Aruch, as we saw also on the tour, if he's carrying a load on his shoulders, it's okay, right? Lavush tefillin, or he's wearing tefillin, or there's another shul in the town, right? The ear. Or let's say this shul has also a different entrance, right, and different sides. Or he's riding on the animal, as we said. So in all these cases, it's allowed, right? So now let's go through each one of them and say why that is, right? If he's carrying a burden, so he's allowed. Why? Because they're going to say, oh, he's too busy working. He's a laborer, so he can't go into shul now and pray, He's working. So it's okay. That's one, right? Number one. Number two, if he's wearing tefillin, right? So why is it okay if he's wearing tefillin? Because they're going to say, oh, this guy is, religious, very devout Jew. He wears tefillin even in the street, He's not a Rasha, right? He's not a denier. He believes in Hashem, right? So therefore, they're not going to suspect him that he's a denier. Like far-fetched, right? A denier doesn't go on the street wearing tefillin, That's not exactly the way it is. Okay, that's reason number two. Reason number three, there's another shul in the neighborhood, right, in the city. So what does that mean? They're going to think, oh, he's going to the other shul, it's okay, He doesn't like the shul, it's they talk too much over there, He likes the other one. They're more quiet over there. So he's going to the other one. Okay. And then we have one more, right? Which is that if there's another entrance towards the shul from a different side, so then it's okay. Why is that? Because they're going to say, oh, you know what? He didn't go from this side. He's going to go from the other side. He'll enter from the other side. So they'll say, oh, okay, so he's all right. He's good. He's a good guy. He's not a denier. He wants to come in from the other side. That's also okay. And also, right, in parentheses, he brings that reason also. We saw if he's riding on the animal, right? As we said in the Bet Yosef, if he's riding on the animal, so then what are people going to say? Oh, he needs to guard his donkey, somebody shouldn't steal his donkey. he shouldn't get a parking ticket, with his donkey there, you know what I mean? So he wants to make sure he doesn't get a parking ticket. So he wants to guard his donkey there, So that's why he can't go in. What is he going to do? Go inside with a donkey inside, right? What is he, Mashiach? What is he going to go in there, right? The Mashiach comes with a donkey, but we don't come into the shul with a donkey, you know what I mean? We don't do that. So therefore, it's okay, it's allowed. So these are the reasons why it's allowed. So it's all logical, it's all, very simple logic, these things. Okay, very good. Thanks for coming tonight. Be blessed with wealth, health, happiness. I'll see you tomorrow. Chazak Baruch. And be holy and happy. B'ezrat Hashem. Thanks for coming.
Kavod Harav. Thank you so much.
Laila Tov.
Thank you so much.